What's going on, guys? Justin Fuller, ex-Honda salesman, tech lover, and today your host, and we are reviewing one of the most iconic Hondas in the world, the Honda Civic. Is it worth the money, and how does it stack up against other makes and models out there in the world? We're going to figure all that out and more. Let's hop on in. Let's start by talking about what's underneath the hood of this Honda Civic. So I'm going to pull you on in. This Honda Civic Sport has a 2-liter engine putting out 158 horsepower. That's then running to a CVT transmission and then out to 18-inch alloy wheels. So while we're at the front of the car and we're talking about engines, I want to throw up a comparison so you can see how does this 2-liter engine that puts out 158 horsepower stack up against other makes and models out in the world. While that's up, I want to remind you of a couple things. The LX and the Sport both come with this engine. Now, if you were on a Civic Si, then you'd be looking at a 1.5 liter that puts out 200 horsepower. If you went to the Civic Hybrid, you'd be looking at a 2-liter hybrid engine setup that gets 200 horsepower. Or if you wanted to spend all the money, like roughly 50 grand, you could get yourself a Civic Type R that puts out 315 horsepower. Now I'm on the ground for two reasons. The first is I want to give you an opportunity to see the 18-inch alloy wheel that comes on the Civic Sport trim. It's a pretty nice looking wheel. I'm not mad at this. This is a good look to me. But while we're down here, I want to talk to you about MPGs. So I'm going to start you with the LX trim. So if you're looking at the base model, right, because that'd be below this, you get 32 in the city and 41 miles per gallon on the highway. If you move to the Sport, ironically, even though it's the same engine, you get 31 in the city and you get 39 on the highway. So a discrepancy there, just something to keep in mind if you're shopping. Now, if you go up to maybe a Civic Hybrid, you said, hey, I want all the gas mileage. 50 in the city and 47 on the highway. So just something to keep in mind depending on the trim and which version of the Civic you pick. But while we're here, I want to throw something up on the screen so you can see how does this specific vehicle stack up against other makes and models that are out there in the world. So in the trunk of this vehicle, you've actually got 14.8 cubic feet of cargo space. It's actually quite a bit. I know a lot of people might see a Civic on the road compared to other large SUVs and think, man, that thing's small, it's not gonna have enough space. I could easily fit a bunch of stuff back here. So if you're an active person, you got a gym bag, you got suitcases or whatever the case is, it will easily fit in the back of this thing. Just for a sake of scale, I wanted to show you that even I can fit in the trunk of this thing. Now, if you're thinking, hey, what if I moved up to the Accord? What does that look like? 16.7 cubic feet. So you could squeeze yourself out roughly 2 more cubic feet if you wanted to go to an Accord. Just something to keep in mind. But while we're back here, I want to do a comparison so you can understand how does the 14.8 cubic feet in this vehicle stack up against other makes and models out there in the world. All right, guys, so let's talk about the second row of this vehicle. In the back of this thing, you've got 37.4 inches of leg space in the back, but it's actually very usable. I want to show you what that looks like. I'm 6'250". If I need to get in the back of this thing and I've got the seat pushed all the way back, I've still got a good amount of space to work with. So understand if you're a bigger guy sitting behind another bigger guy in this car, you'd still be okay. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, how does that stack up against other makes and models out in the world? Let's throw that up on the screen. While that's up there, I'll just remind you, the 37.4, if you moved up to like an Accord and you said, hey, maybe I want to get something a little bit bigger, 40.8 inches. So roughly 3 inches more if you wanted to move into a larger vehicle. It's a little bit more expensive. All right, guys, so here we are on the front of this vehicle. Of course, I want to point out the interior. You're looking at a cloth interior in the Sport, specifically black. So if you live somewhere hot like Texas, understand you don't have the option specifically in the Sport for a different color interior, so just something to keep in mind. But while we're here, you've got 42.3 inches of leg space in this vehicle. So you can push this sucker way back. To show you what it looks like, once again, I'm 6'250". If I have the seat all the way back, I have got an enormous amount of space to work with. While we're here though, I want to throw a comparison up so you can see how does the 42.3 inches of leg space in this vehicle stack up against other makes and models out there in the world. While that's up on the screen, I'll just remind you, if you were considering maybe jumping to the Accord, the exact same amount of leg space in the front of the vehicle for the Civic and the Accord. All right, guys, so we're back down here on the ground, but I'm here for two reasons. Again, the first is give you an opportunity to see what the front end of this vehicle looks like. Does it smile? Does it grimace? I think we can all agree when we look at cars, it's one of the things that we pay attention to. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the front end. But while we're here, I want to talk to you about ground clearance. This vehicle offers 6.2 inches of ground clearance on the vehicle. That can be important depending on what part of the country you live in, what the roads are like. So I'm going to throw a comparison up so you can see how does that stack up against other makes and models out there in the world. While that's up, I'll just remind you, if you were considering the Accord, it's actually less. It's 5.3 inches. So something to keep in mind if you're shopping Honda Civic, Honda Accord, or anything else out there in the market. All right, guys, so I want to stop for a second and talk to you about something I would arguably say is one of the most important things I learned when I was selling vehicles, and that's understanding trim levels. Right? So we're in a sport model right now. Below it is the LX, that's your entry-level model, and then above it you have some other models. What I want you to know is, hey, This car, 27, I think 4 roughly, and then depending on if you pick a premium color, could affect those numbers, right? I want you to understand, hey, if I drop down to the LX, 1, how much money does it save me? But 2, what's that list of items that I'm gonna lose, right? That I'm gonna give up. So you can understand, hey, I save this money, but I give up all these items. And then I wanna do it the other way. If you're in the Sport and you go up a trim, right? I want you to understand how much extra are you going to spend, but what is that additional amount of items that you get? So let's talk about technology. In the front of this vehicle, you have got a 7-inch touchscreen that lives inside of the vehicle. Now, all of the trim levels, with the exception of the Sport Touring, is going to have the 7-inch touchscreen. If you move up, you can get to that 9-inch touchscreen in the top end trim. Now, I want to throw a comparison up so you can understand how does the 7-inch touchscreen compete against other makes and models out there in the world. While it's up, I remind you, you could always move over to a Honda Accord. Depending on the trim level there, you can get up to a 12.3-inch screen, or it could be a smaller screen. Additionally, something to note, in this vehicle, it of course does offer Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but they are wired. If you're looking for that wireless connection, you'd have to climb to the very top end trim level of the Honda Civic. So something to keep in mind if that's something that is important to you. Now, while we're talking about technology, I want to talk to you about audio systems. Depending on the trim level of the Civic that you pick, you could be looking at a 160-watt speaker system, you could be looking at a 180-watt speaker system, or if you're in that top-end trim, you could be looking at a 12-speaker Bose system that I want to say is roughly 300 watts. In this, more basic system, is it good enough to get around and listen to? Absolutely. You can enjoy it, but you're not going to blow anyone's ears out. You may want to look at adding an amp or a sub in the back of the vehicle if that's something that's more important to you. I'm one of those people, so I probably would. So very quickly, I want to talk to you about safety. It's something Hondas are known for, and it might be important, especially if you're shopping for this for a loved one, a child, whoever the case may be. So let's talk about some basic features that come standard in all the Hondas, right? So the first one is going to be road departure mitigation. What that is if you're starting to drift off the shoulder of the road, the steering wheel can give you a vibrate, and it can actually give you an audible alert to be like, hey, wake up, pay attention. So know that that's something that exists in this car. The next one I want to talk to you about is blind spot information systems. I think we all have a basic understanding for this, but what it is over in the mirror, there's an indicator that will light up if someone's in your blind spot. If you start to get over, it'll actually give you an audible alert to let you know, like, hey, there is someone over there. So you've got sensors off the back end of the car to help you with that. The next one I want to talk to you about is collision mitigation braking. Now, what's that it's doing is using radar to bounce it off of cars in front of you. So if it's looking like you're going to rear into another car and it starts to close that distance, it can give you an audible alert, flash in the dash, and then actually apply the brakes to help you from rear-ending another car. Now, in that same capacity, you have things like adaptive cruise control. What that is if I get up to my speed, right, I go ahead and set my speed, and then I can set the distance it keeps between me and the car in front of me. So if the car in front of me goes from 70 miles and slows down to 55, it can keep that designated amount of space that I select off the steering wheel and slow me down until I get out and around them and then take me back up to my speed. The last feature it has is lane keep assist. Lane keep assist uses a camera that is actually right up here by the rearview mirror to detect the lines on the road. So if you're driving, let's say in the center lane on a highway, and you started to get distracted, you looked over the side and you started to drift out of your lane, it can actually correct for you and keep you centered in your lane so you don't drift in the vehicle next to you. So understand, as far as safety, these are active features that you can use. You can turn them all on, you can turn them all off, you can use them. That are available to you and standard in a Honda Civic. So let's take a second to answer the question, should you buy a Honda Civic? I would arguably, the short answer, say yes. It's a great car, gets good gas mileage, it's reliable, it offers a ton of safety features. This specific one, the Sport, is actually really nice looking. The only thing I don't really like about it is the 158 horsepower, and it's not even really that bad. It's a light car, and there's things you can do to affect performance. On top of that, speaking of performance and things like that, there is a ton of aftermarket available parts and things that you can do to a Honda Civic, so you can customize this vehicle to make it yours. So in that aspect, you could start with this, and you could end with something completely different in a year or two if you wanted to add on to it, or you could start at a higher trim. Right? Maybe that's important to you. So if you're out there shopping Honda Civics, I would say give it a shot. Of course, there's all these comparisons that I made going through the different specs so that you can see how it stacks up against other makes and models out in the world. But I do think this is a great vehicle. So other than that, I want to ask you for a couple favors. Hope you'll like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share the video. If you got some friends searching, hey, maybe let them check it out. Maybe they like the way I produce the content. Other than that, later guys!